Yeah, Friday Live ain't live. We're not going to try to hide it from you. I mean, you talked about live from New York wasn't really live on our Sunday recording, but I'm going to say hold my beer on this one because the funny thing happened as we were booking guests for this week. I'm like, oh, JB, my flight is at 5:55, I think, in the morning is the takeoff. So boarding at 5:25 from Albany to Minneapolis, St. Paul. So that will not be possible. It'll be very interesting to try to do a show from an airplane, but we're not going to go there. So we appreciate all of our guests' flexibility to make this a recorded show that we're going live to tape on. So we're live to tape at the very least with respect to certain aspects of this as well. What's your feeling here? I'm going to see you in a few weeks. I got to see you last weekend, but I didn't get to drag you to a game. But are you starting to fear the weather in Canton? What's your thoughts here as we're preparing for things moving forward here?
Well, I definitely had a preview of it in New York when it was feels like 10 and 6 and 8 and the snow. I probably will be bringing some long johns. I'm beginning to think that maybe the Semptimphelter scuba suit plan could have some merit, especially if it can, fit under what I plan to wear on the sideline at the Stag Bowl. But it's being outside in that weather for a little while gets to you. It's definitely an adjustment, especially for this Florida guy.
Okay, let's go to this weather forecast for this weekend. Then, what would you do if you were me? I'm guessing. Yeah, AccuView Huddle forecast looking like this.
The only thing I'd get for you, Frank, is maybe a winter hat to cover your head and ears, just to keep you a little bit warmer out there. I've seen too many frozen mayor memes at this stage, but I guess you've got that New York blood. It's thicker than mine, so more power to you.
I don't know, 22 and a little bit of snow. That doesn't really scare me compared to what we were facing last year with some of the Mount Union, Johns Hopkins game weather. It was colder than that last year, I believe. If it wasn't, then I don't know what I'm smoking at this point. But, the 39, though, in Naperville with, showers, light rain, so that'll make it feel a little colder. Yeah, it's different.
The wet would be
rain.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know how that rain crept in there. I'm going to get my Chicago forecast out here to see how impactful that's supposed to be, if you give me a second. But, do you think that affects a game at all, that type of weather?
A wet ball always affects a game. And if it's windy, who knows? We could see some more turnovers possibly. I mean, that is something that John Carroll struggled with a little bit last week in good warm weather in Georgia. So, and with a rushing team like North Central, you punch the ball on defense. If you're a Blue Streaks defender, maybe you pry one loose and get a turnover for your team.
I'm thinking that this is like a 10% chance, if that, because my alternate weather source here is not even bringing that up. For the 20th around that time of day. But, different weather models have different things. Just like, certain D3 models say different things all the time.
Different things.
We're not going to name names here. But, JB, we got a lot of great content to go here on our quote-unquote live show, our semifinal preview show here, our 38th episode of the season on what is the season 18 of In the Huddle. Yeah. It's time for the semifinals. Well, here's where we are. Take all those teams to the right now in the second, third, fourth columns, and they're gone. The last four were obviously out to start. We kept them in the list, but The two outliers we had last week just couldn't do it in games that weren't really that exciting at the end of the day. They were kind of start to finish games. But North Central at number 4, River Falls at number 6, Johns Hopkins at number 7, and John Carroll at number 10 in the MPI are the teams remaining. And JB, as we kind of go through these games here and begin to preview them, we're going to have a lot of concentration on semifinal number 2 coming up. We had a lot of focus on the teams in semifinal number 1 in prior weeks, especially last 2 weeks. So we want to make sure we gave our due to John Carroll and North Central, and that's where our guests come from in this week's show. Then we're going to have a guest analyst, we believe. We'll see, again, we're live to tape, but we haven't, finished all of our planning here. So if you don't see a guest analyst, we'll tell you why later. But we think you'll enjoy our guest analyst coming up later on if they are able to join us. But for now, I'm going to let you first off, I think your picture may be associated with the first game here. Take a look at our new graphic for the semifinals that we've introduced here. And here it is. JB is going to tell us about game number 1. That's Johns Hopkins at number 7, at River Falls number 6. Go for it.
Yeah, so as it kind of says on the screen, I mean, Hopkins has been here before. They went toe-to-toe with Mount Union last year, kind of basically put themselves on the national map because of that game in many respects, and have been building up to this level and have been really close to a Stag Bowl berth. And I think, honestly, and I said this before, not everybody agrees with me, but that's fine. Hopkins could have won that game if they didn't get so conservative with their play calling in the second quarter. Kind of put them behind a little bit, and they were chasing the Purple Raiders for the rest of the way. River Falls has been a team that has been working its way up to this point. They won the WIAC, which is a big accomplishment, and they have these crazy offensive numbers with like the 47 points per game and the 563 plus yards per game on average. I mean, I think now they might even be averaging 50 points a game. I can't remember where I pulled if the 47 was just for the playoffs or the season itself. But either way, Caleb Blaha, one of the Ghilardi semifinalists, is a good chance to maybe even taking that trophy home potentially. We'll see. But Bate Harvey on the other side of John Hopkins is right there with them. Both of these quarterbacks are arguably, depending on which side of the fence you're on, either 1A or 1B, best in the nation. Both guys can really both throw really far, strong arms, they can run, so they can beat you lots of different ways. They read defenses well, they're seniors, they're experienced, and so they don't make mistakes very often. And so we'll have to see whether this turns into a shootout or maybe more of a defensive battle, because we've seen teams like Hopkins and River Falls, they have running backs like Schroeder and Asher that can kind of eat the clock, and they've got these big offensive lines that can kind of pound it. So we'll see. Maybe it won't be a shootout, and maybe it'll be more of a possession football, old-fashioned run, crash and burn, 3 yards per carry. We'll see.
You were spot on. 47.00 is after the playoffs so far for River Falls. So they're right there. I think they scored 46 last week, if I remember correctly. It was the 46-21 game to get us to the 6-7 joke that we did in our cold open. Yeah, oh, God. But nevertheless, I like the point you bring up about the fact that Johns Hopkins has the experience of being in a semifinal, whereas River Falls, I think, was only 1-2 in their playoff history before this season. Obviously, now won 3 games to get to this point, but River Falls, the point goes back to there were 60 more play entries in the game that River Falls played compared to the game Johns Hopkins played. Again, that's not play count. This includes penalties. This includes, scoring entries and things like that. But it gives you a real feel of how different the pacing of those games were. That was a pretty quick game I attended at Homewood, on last Saturday for Johns Hopkins hosting Susquehanna. compared to what River Falls had. And they were the same distance in score in the end, give or take, 26 points differential or 25 points differential versus 30 points. That's no real difference in my book. That's still a 4-possession game for both of them. So it just tells you, because of that speed of offense, that Top Gun offense, JB, it's just going to be a real interesting feel if Johns Hopkins has to kind of go to that. But they got into that shootout last year against Mount Union and held up in the end. They didn't feel comfortable, it didn't look on that field, being in the shootout. They were able to perform inside of it and stay within a possession for most of that game, no matter what was happening. Do you think with a Bay Harvey type, they could win a shootout, or are you pretty steadfast in the idea if a shootout occurs in this game, that game is going to be River Falls' game all day?
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I was watching the Crunch Time show. I always like to see it when we record it. We don't have the highlights in front of us, right? So, the separation that the River Falls receivers was getting in that quarterfinal game was a bit concerning. If you're the defensive coordinator for Hopkins, but on the flip side, if I have a guy like Cole Crotty, who's probably one of, if not the best wide receiver in the country, and I've got Enright, I mean, it's not like Hopkins doesn't have weapons. I mean, that Reykjavik guy, if I'm saying his name right, I think the big tight end from La Crosse had 4 touchdowns on on North Central, and so. There are some guys in the WIAC that can do some of the same things that Hopkins receivers can. So I think it's going to be one of those situations that it's going to come down to coverage breakdowns, maybe turnovers, and if Hopkins has to go to a shootout type of situation, they have the players where they can compete.
Well, now I will take on the JCU North Central game here for semifinal number 2, and I'll lead us up to our first interview and guest coming up here. And number 10 versus number 4. So obviously there's a declared favorite, at least for MPI's point of view here, especially, you give the a little bit of extra juice to the home team in that respect. Carroll's defense has allowed only 8.67 points per game, but faces off against one of the top offenses in the nation, as it says there. North Central is averaging 36 points per game in the playoffs, which, again, you're not playing pushovers for most of these games, so it's a lot, and is rushing for over 272 yards per game in 2025. That's their bread and butter, including with their quarterback. Just because Luke Layton graduated off did not mean that Garrett Wilson wasn't going to be able to do the same with that offensive line, sort of leading the way at all times for that team. Something's got to give, for sure in this game. The question becomes, as we do a little early analysis here, what gives, do you think here? Is it going to be that John Carroll defense that played masterfully in the last 2 games, but especially in that Mount Union game? Or is it going to be this, I should say both games, 7 turnovers forced by that defense last week, and cleaned up some of the mess that the offense was leaving too, I think giving up the ball 3 times. So, or one was on special teams on the punt muff, but still, it wasn't the cleanest game. And we'll get more into that with Nick Semptimphelter coming up. But, or is it going to be this North Central just pound it down your throat type of thing with that offensive line, and then, like Garrett Wilson uncork one and, get those points and rinse and repeat all game? Which do you think gives?
Well, I mean, I think we saw it a little bit with Bethel and North Central last week. I mean, they kind of went toe-to-toe in the first quarter and into the end of the first half. I mean, it maybe should have been a 14-14 game at halftime. I mean, that last play was a mess. But irrespective of that, the third quarter was clearly North Central on. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They were making the blocks. McNeil, who now is probably a household name for D3 fans, really grounded out and helped them control the clock, the scoreboard, and eventually it was 35-7, and that game was basically over. So I'm a broken record on this show sometimes. I would say for the millionth time, I mean, Carroll just has to hang in there and take a few shots early and sort of hold their ground and just not fall behind by a couple scores early in the first half and give themselves a chance in the second to make it a game.
So let's bring in our first guest here, and he's somebody that began becoming a household name last season on our show, as I had to learn to pronounce it. And it's one of those, take a deep breath and just roll with it. And I still have to sort of go slow on it because it's easy to trip up on. But he's over and over again been on our Crunch Time highlights as a result of his gameplay for John Carroll. That is graduate quarterback Nick Semptimphelter, who has been just a phenom. And, I look back at that touchdown that he threw at Mount Union, a couple weeks ago to make it a 7-7 game. And you sort of realized when he did that, and it was somewhat, in the middle of the game at that point that, that defense is repelling them, that he had the ability to get that offense in position and to make that throw, that he wasn't scared by that team and probably isn't going to be scared by North Central. He respects them, but to respect a team versus to be intimidated by a team, two entirely different concepts there. And so let's talk to Nick Semptimphelter about things. Nick, thanks for joining us. We tried last week, but you guys were in the middle of some travel at that point, heading to Barrie, and now you're going to be traveling again to somewhat warm for this time of year in Naperville. So some of our questions may not be very representative of some of the things we learned in the meantime, but we'll get there. First things first, how does it feel to be at this stage, one of only 4 teams remaining right now, and playing in a national semifinal game after getting through Mount Union a couple of weeks ago? How's everything feeling out there?
It feels great. We're extremely lucky and blessed to be in the position that we're in. And, we have a great opponent that we play on Saturday, and we're excited for the challenge.
Well, absolutely. Well, Nick, one of the things that, talking heads like us, kind of been mulling over the last couple of weeks and would love to get your perspective on is some of the offensive, output. I mean, to be fair, you are also playing some of the best defensive teams in the country. So, you're not going to maybe be putting up like 55, 66, 31, some of these points, that we see on your schedule where you guys have been pretty explosive offensively. How do you adjust when you get to the playoffs and that you're not going to be blowing teams out? It's going to be close games. Is it like a mentality thing? Is it a play calling thing? Sort of looking to take your shots and your opportunities when you get them because the defenses are that much better? How do you really make that adjustment when you're used to winning games by 50, 30, 40 points?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a mentality. Going into the week, you got to know that it's going to be a 4-quarter battle in the playoffs because when you make it to the playoffs, every team is good, every defense is good. So you just got to take it one play at a time and understand that no one play or one drive can necessarily, it won't determine the outcome of the game, but it's going to be a full 4-quarter game. And offensively, that can be a mental challenge, knowing like if you have a drive that stalls out when maybe in the regular season you're used to scoring more frequently, but just having the mental strength, knowing that you got to take it one play at a time, and it's going to be a 4-quarter battle, especially this time of the year when there's 4 teams left and every defense is great. So I think we're prepared for that, and we're prepared for a 4-quarter battle, so I'm excited.
Let's go back for one of your big 4-quarter battles and then some a couple weeks ago, the Mount Union game, obviously. And, what I want to look at is, I said it on this show last week that, hey, congratulations, but you won a football game. You didn't win anything else at that point besides, a legendary game. And I'm not trying to be a jerk when I say something like that, but it's just kind of, I think, probably the mentality your coaches wanted you guys to have as well. Coach Behrman, who I'm friends with from his days at Union College, I know that it's always been kind of his moderating view of things, which is you got to still play some more games, guys, get your heads in the right spot. How did you personally make sure you didn't kind of overlook the next step, the Berry game last week, in which, both teams had a very sloppy game. Let's not kid ourselves. You guys had, obviously, the 7 turnovers you forced, but I think you had 3 of your own in the other direction. So how did you guys and how did you personally get past that euphoria feeling and focus on that Berry game the way you needed to win it?
I think we took Saturday after Mount Union. We definitely celebrated. It was a big win for the program and for the alumni, and we felt the support from our alums, and it was an important game for them too. But on Sunday, we got Barry's film and we just refocused. We have a pretty mature team, and that's what I love about a lot of these guys is that we understood that we beat Mount Union and that was a huge win for the program. But at the end of the day, we had another game the following Saturday with the chance to go to the semifinals, which is, a huge accomplishment in itself and an opportunity to keep playing football. So, like you said, it was a sloppy day on Saturday, but at the end of the day, we found a way to win and we're still playing. So that's all you need this time of year is just finding a way to win so you can keep playing some football.
Yeah, absolutely. That's got to definitely be the mentality. And I'm trying to find it because there was actually an article I was going to reference here, but and there was a great article about you and your teammates on D3Football.com. But one of the local Ohio papers was kind of pointing out how this team, this Blue Streaks group, is a mix of both, kind of homegrown guys, like the Joe Timmons of the world that we had on in the preseason, plus guys like yourself. You played at Bucknell. There are a couple other guys on the team that came in through various either, FCS, D2 types of transfers. What was the process like for you all, kind of with a mix of guys from different backgrounds? It's a, kind of a national roster in some respects. I always view you guys as sort of like the Notre Dame of D3. And so what has it been like, this journey that you've been on? You've been playing football together since, August, and it's December 18th now when we're talking. It's been a long haul. How has this team coalesced over that time period with the different both transfer and homegrown guys?
Yeah, I mean it's been great. This program, this team, they welcomed us in with open arms, and we have several transfers that came in last year and this year as well. So it's been great having. This is my second year here. It's been great having that first year kind of under my belt in terms of figuring out the team and John Carroll and especially this offense. So having the second year has been a huge advantage for me and some of my other teammates. And the teammates that we added to in the transfer portal this past season, they've been a great addition as well. Like you talk about guys like Shane Lindstrom, and he's been a huge contributor on this offense. So I think this program does a great job of opening people with open arms, whether they're a freshman or a transfer. And it's also tough too at the Division III level. Camp starts in August. You don't get any time in the summer to kind of have some team bonding and that kind of thing. So when camp starts, you kind of gotta surround your team, and you gotta come together and with a common goal. So I think we did a great job of that, and that's why we're in the semifinals right now.
Kind of alluded to it, but I'll go there. 2023, you were a team captain at another team. You were at Bucknell at that point. And, for those out there that are making that decision right now about the transfer portal and, what is the right call, what isn't the right call, what did you think about when you were going in that approach? Why did you make that call despite being a leader on the Bucknell team? And the stupid question of the week for Frank is, do you regret that decision at all? How's things going for you there, Nick, after making that decision?
Yeah, it's going great. No, I don't regret it at all. I've loved my time here at John Carroll. It's been a huge blessing to not only myself but my family as well. I have my sister here and my brother Kenny Rawls, who's our tight end. And people entering the transfer portal, I'd say, every situation is different. But at the end of the day, I wanted to come to a program and have a chance to get my master's and to win football games and to be in the position that we're in right now. So I'm extremely lucky and blessed to be in this position. But the transfer portal is huge nowadays. There's a lot of guys, jumping in and out. But I'd say as a player and as a student, just going to the university or college that has the best fit for you is very important, and I found that in John Carroll.
Yeah, certainly, and I imagine they're more than happy to have you there. One of the things that really jumps out, and congratulations on being a Glardy semifinalist. I know that there will be some announcements on that coming up soon, but you almost pulled off a 80% completion rate. You've had some games where you've almost hit 100% of your passes. You've only thrown 3 interceptions compared to 33 touchdowns. I mean, is this like a God-given talent that you have, or is it a combination of that plus the play calling? I mean, you are so accurate. I mean, 78.67% is probably one of the best stats in the entire college football, regardless of division. How have you pulled that off?
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think it's a combination of things. I think our play calling is great. The quarterback before me at John Carroll, Joe Collins, he broke the completion percentage record in a single season with his first season under Coach Behrman and Coach James. So I think it's a combination of the play calling and the offensive structure, as well as the great teammates I have around me. I mean, guys like Ty Montgomery, I mentioned Shane Lindstrom as well, Kenny Rawls, and we have a great offensive line blocking. And, I think as a team, we do a great job of keeping the ball in play, which is, helps with the completion percentage. And, I think that's kind of been my MO as a quarterback, is keep the ball in play, take what the defense gives you. And I think offensively we do a great job kind of structuring that, and we have great playmakers around me as well.
Okay, Nick, so Coach Behrman threw you under the bus, as I said, on the Around the Nation podcast. But let's take a look here. The weather forecast is actually reasonable for mid-December, heading into late December now. For North Central, Naperville. So think of me while I'm kind of navigating light snow at River Falls, as I'll be covering that game. Pat Coleman will actually be with you guys at North Central. 39 degrees. Is that cold enough for the wetsuit? What happened there with respect to the wetsuit mentality? Does it restrict you at all from throwing a football? Because it seems like that kind of tightness around your midsection as you're trying to pivot to throw, that can't be a very comfortable scenario for you. But, Tom Brady apparently lives by the credo, in a cold game wear it. So how did this all come to be in the first place, that you wore a wetsuit, possibly at Mount Union or other games? Tell us about this.
Yeah, so after Mount Union last year in the playoffs, it was cold, and I had never played in something like that. I'm a Nashville guy, I'm a Southern guy, so that was an experience in itself. So after that game, I went home, and I just remember thinking, I was like, I can't let the weather be the reason next year ends for me, because I didn't play very well either. So. And I think a lot of it to do was, I was struggling with the cold and the wind, and I wasn't prepared for that. I'd never played in that. I didn't have a spring ball up in Cleveland where I had to be out in the elements every day. So I remember sitting there, and I was trying to figure out ways to not allow that to happen again. And I went through spring ball up in Cleveland, which you say spring ball, it's more like winter ball. The snow's on the ground, it's freezing. We go early in the morning, the sun's not out, so. That definitely helped kind of build some experience in the cold. But again, I wasn't practicing my best, and I wasn't as sharp as I wanted to be. So this summer I kind of sat around with my dad, who he played 8 years of professional football and played in college, obviously. So I was sitting around with him, and I was trying to figure out ways to stay warm in the cold. And I have a heated hand warmer. I have the hand warmers, whatever you can really think of. So I was talking to him, and he said, well, Derek Carr used to wear a scuba suit. And I was like, okay, that sounds the first exact thought, I was like, that's going to be way too tight on my body. Like, that won't work. So kind of dismissed it. We kind of looked at some other options. And anyway, the season rolled around, and as it started to get a little colder up here, I was talking to my offense coordinator, Coach James, and he mentioned again the scuba suit, and he said Tom Brady wore it. And I was a big Tom Brady fan growing up. And so once he said the scuba suit from Tom Brady, and my dad had already said it in the summer, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it at least. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I can't say I didn't try, because, like I said, I did not want the season to end this year how it did last year. So I ordered the scuba suit. I put it on. And when I told everybody I got scuba suit, everybody's first reaction is that that'd be way too tight. But honestly, it's not very restrictive at all, which I know is surprising. So it keeps me warm. Even when we played in Mount Union, it was pretty cold. When I took the scuba suit off, I was sweating underneath. So it's very interesting, and I can't tell quarterbacks enough. Like if you struggle in the cold, wear a scuba suit under. It'll keep you warm. So I have some other tricks too that I use too. I have hand warmers on my wrists to keep the blood warm into my hands. So little tricks like that I've learned along the way.
But do you think it's too late for a commentator like me on the sideline to grab a scuba suit and be warm too tomorrow, or on Saturday actually at River Falls? Do you think it would work for me if it worked for you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I put it on, I walk out to the practice field, I start jogging around to kind of build up the internal heat, and then I'm good. So I'd say if you want to stay warm on the sideline, put it on. You might have to do some sprints on the sideline, but no, it'll keep you warm.
Yeah.
JB, I got to find a dress shirt.
I might be going straight to the surf shop here in Florida to get one of those for Canton. I'm sold, because I am also, I guess you could say, a Southern guy as well. Down here in Florida. So Nick, you mentioned you're a Nashville guy. Your dad played some pro ball. And these days, there's actually a lot of different opportunities, not just the NFL, for aspiring pro football players. I mean, I know in a couple of weeks, Orlando's going to be having the UFL come in here to town, and we have a team now. We've got a new indoor football team and the Pirates. So there's a lot of different possibilities. But is that something, irrespective of how it goes Saturday, or maybe in Canton in a couple of weeks, is pro football something you're going to pursue, or do you get this graduate degree to kind of do a job that you've been wanting to do for a career? What's your plans?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about it. I have a couple different options that I'm thinking about, but honestly, my full focus has been on these playoffs, and I've given that a little thought in terms of what could be a possible route to take, but. Most of my thought this week has been on North Central, obviously. So I say I still have some things to figure out after this season, but I still have to graduate in May, so I'll be at John Carroll this spring. But yeah, that's the future still. I don't really know what's going to happen with it, and hopefully we have a couple more weeks to kind of figure that out.
Who's the best athlete in the collection of children that are the siblings, of yours and whatnot? So where do you rank yourself among the children of the family?
Oh, geez. It's funny you say that. Our offensive coordinator came up to me and he reminded me yesterday that I was the least athletic in the family. So,
of course he did.
Many people do. It's a funny joke. No, my sister, she's a great basketball player here at John Carroll. She had 37 a couple weeks ago. I actually missed that game because we were driving to Mount Union, of course, so I was joking with her that she plays better when I'm not there. But no, she's having a great season so far. I believe they're ranked 11th in the nation, so she's having a great season so far. They're actually down in Nashville right now for a Christmas tournament, and so good luck to them. And then Kenny Rawls, he's having a great year as well. He played at North Alabama, and then he transferred in with me as well. So I'm super blessed to have him as a teammate and as a brother. So no, it's tough competition in the Semptimphelter household, I'll say that.
JB, if I may, one other thing I want to ask. I alluded to Coach Behrman earlier coming in, and Brian Polian, your athletic director, is somebody who's one of your biggest cheerleaders out there. He has the luxury to give you guys shout-outs on local Cleveland media because he does some side work out there as well. But obviously took the victory lap with you guys for the, let's say, abuse he took on, leaving the OAC, going to the NCAC and all that stuff. But those guys have such a worldview of football and what it takes to win. Speak to that leadership and what it means to making that program what it has become. Guys like you obviously have to still do what you got to do on the field, regardless of what they give you guys. But how important is there leadership and support to make John Carroll this level of a competitor on the field?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. Coach Polian, he has a ton of experience coaching football at a very high level. So, having him as our athletic director is a huge advantage in itself. And he's an alum, as is Coach Behrman. So, having alums around the program and people who know the power and the history of the program is very important. So I'd say, those two, having their guidance is huge for us, as we've been on this run. And, we see Coach Polian a lot. He's around. He's a football guy. So, it's a blessing to have him around this program and to be able to lean on him for questions or for anything we might need. And Coach Behrman, as you mentioned, he's a great leader. He's a man of faith. He's been a tremendous leader for this team this year, and you can see as our output on the field. And again, I'd run through a brick wall for Coach Behrman. He's a great man, and we're hoping we can get a couple more wins for him in this program.
Well, absolutely, and we could talk to guys like you and Coach Behrman and Coach Polian all morning long, but we know that you have an important job to do to lead your team against North Central this Saturday. I'm sure there's some tape and some more game planning to be attended to. So even though we could keep going for an hour here, I did want to at least give you the opportunity to give some shout outs to any family, friends, coaches, teammates. I think which you already have to a good extent, to be honest. But if there's anybody else you want to add, Nick Semptimphelter, the floor is yours.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. You guys do a tremendous job, and I've loved following you guys all season. I'd like to give a shout out to my teammates, my coaches. It's been a fun year so far. Hopefully we're not done yet. Shout out to my family. They've been to every game this year. They drive most games, which is about 8 hours from home in Franklin, Tennessee. Shout out to the women's basketball team, John Carroll. They have a big couple games coming up. And, shout out to all the alumni as well. We felt your support, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully we can get a couple more wins for you guys.
You've made it exciting, Nick, to say the least. We thought we might have kind of the mundane, repeat of a game in the Stag Bowl, or at least in the semifinals round this year. And it ain't going to be that. It's going to be a team that, not many people are giving a good chance to on Saturday. And you've done it once. Can you done it again? We'll see what happens on Saturday. Best of luck to you. Regardless, we'd love to see a good game on Saturday. We don't pick sides in that respect. But we do want to see a great football game and everybody make it out safe and sound. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you heard our discussion, obviously, about Bucknell, which is where Nick Semptimphelter came from. 3 of our 4 quarterbacks were transfers into their respective D3 programs. Caleb Laha, who we talked to last week, transferred in. I'm trying to think. I'll think of it eventually, but I think it was Winona State maybe that he transferred in from. But then you've got Bucknell, and then you've got Garrett Wilson also as a transfer that came in this year and lit things up for North Central. So 3 out of 4 starting quarterbacks in the semifinals are, upper divisioners that came down to D3, down to D3, quote unquote, but, are excelling and getting the attention that they wanted coming out of high school, ultimately, as quarterbacks. And so it's an impressive thing to watch this play out. And it sends a message that for those people that are, the St. Francis, sympathists for everybody just, heading for the exit type thing and saying D3 is nothing, these kids want to play FCS and everything else. Well, maybe they should take a step back and look at what's going on in D3 and the national spotlight these players are getting for their teams. If you're that good, if you can play and, lead your team to this level, and not every team will get here, we get that. But it's put up or shut up at that time, and these guys did that, and their teams have really benefited from it when you look at it. So Nick Semptimphelter has done a great job to give that offense a consistency after Collins graduated off, and more power to them on that. What's your takeaways from that interview?
You can just tell that he's just a great leader, guy that has confidence in himself and his teammates, and they obviously have confidence in him. And if he was elected a captain at Bucknell, he's got all the right stuff. And so he's one of those kind of guys who will stand in there and fight for that last yard. He'll take the hits if he needs to and lead his team. And so, impressive young man. And it's going to be interesting to see how he handles the basically inevitable pressure of dealing with guys like JP Sullivan, some of those large defensive tackles. His offensive line is going to have a tough day, but he's just going to have to stand in the pocket and look for opportunities and try to avoid guys like Ramiro Roby, who has been picking off some QBs during this playoff run. So it'll be a tough matchup for him, but I think he's up to it. And by the way, Frank, you were right. Caleb did go to Winona State, so good call on that one.
It's sometimes, the aging doesn't completely take away my memory here. We got the bracket that North Central fought through to get to this point as well. So let's transition here. JP Sullivan was one of the players that was brought to they do regular season press conferences at North Central as well when I attended the Oshkosh game. And, he was assumed to be a stud this year. At that point, he's got 20 tackles for loss, 7 sacks this season. I think out of 64 tackles. He is living in the backfield. His size and his gameplay speak for themselves. But, we want to have him back on here to talk about, let's sort of go from that first game of the season, that Oshkosh game, where they really did win big, and thanks to him in large part on that defense, to now, and what this team has become in terms of that gelling together maturity situation. Here's JP Sullivan. Yeah, he goes by John on the roster, obviously, but JP is what everybody calls him. So JP Sullivan from North Central. JP, thanks for joining us. And, it's been a little while since I've seen you, actually. I saw you last at the post game of the Oshkosh game I attended. Oshkosh came in as a very favored team this season in the WIAC or WIAC, whatever they call themselves these days. But you guys handled them very easily, thanks in large part to you. You were in that post-game presser with eye black all over your face and everything else. At that time, though, we had a lot of questions about who North Central was this season. And all you guys have done is kept winning and winning and getting better and better, it feels like. Take us through this season in terms of the gelling process for especially your defense and how you guys have matured in a way that has gotten you back onto this stage in the national semifinals.
Yeah, throughout the course of the season, we knew it was going to be a journey. Like, everything is not going to go perfect the first couple weeks, and we knew we had to get better each week. And in terms of defense, we knew we had the opportunity to become the best defense in North Central history, and that's what our goal was, and we strive for it every week.
Well, certainly, and the stats back it up. I think Frank mentioned earlier on. This season you've already racked up 20 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and over 60 tackles. So you're kind of living in the backfield. It seems like that's been kind of how the North Central defense likes to play. You guys bring pressure and cause some havoc. I imagine that's what we'll probably see on Saturday.
Yeah. We just stick to our normal game plan. Nobody need to do anything special. Just simply doing your 111th and trusting the guy next to you, so it can make their life easier. And yeah.
Obviously, there's been a little bit of emotion on campus over the last week, and then some with the passing of Coach Thorne. He was a friend of ours, a friend of the show, a friend of D3 football. I'm not sure if you had much of an overlap yourself, but regardless, Coach Spencer obviously was greatly affected by Coach Thorne. How has the emotion been? I'm assuming the team attended the services this week and everything else. But how did things go over the last week with that emotion sort of surrounding it, including at the in that game this past weekend?
Yeah, it's very sad that our past coach passed away, and it just gave us an opportunity to play for something bigger than us. And we knew that Bethel was a great opportunity for avenge what he did in the past, and we knew he did a lot for us. He was able to come speak to us before his passing, so I was able to meet him in person, and just playing for something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he was a big influence on Coach Spencer and probably other guys over the decades that he was involved with North Central football. On a lighter note, your coach was just named the AFCA Coach of the Year. What's it been like to play for a guy like Coach Spencer? He's kind of a mild-mannered, not very fiery type of personality. It's gotten to know him now over the last couple of years. But he really has done a fantastic job getting you guys prepared week in, week out. What's it been like playing for him?
Yeah, it's very awesome playing for Coach Spencer, and he just keeps everything cool, calm, and collected, and he really steers the ship where it needs to go, and we all trust him and love him, and we love playing for him, and he just does everything the right way, and we just follow in his footsteps.
Let's talk a little bit about the playoffs so far, JP. And we got the scoreboard up here from both teams' seasons here. We'll look to the right side for North Central's. And, defensively, 14-0, 14-0, 10-0. You guys seem to pitch a shutout every other game for a little while there. 14-7, 0-7. You go into the playoffs with the Hanover game, giving up 6. Then, obviously, 27 deceiving, and we've talked about that on the show before, and even the 21 might be a little deceiving as well. But that Bethel game had a different feel to it in terms of that first half, where it could have very easily been, refs or not, they got within the red zone on their own in that first half, so we'll focus on that aspect of it. It could have been a tie game. You guys stopped them on, obviously, that second and goal attempt with the time expiring. But, how did you guys sort of regroup from that? Because it seemed like the first half that didn't go your way fully the first time this season. So how did you guys sort of get into the locker room and, adapt from that or, make the changes? What was being said after that first half versus Bethel, where they kind of went almost stride for stride with you guys, at least in that half?
Yeah, we basically have to flush the past, focus on what's coming ahead of us, and simply control the controllables. We can't control what happens, what's called, and everything that's not in our control, basically. And just bringing positive energy to people around us to focus on the task at hand and not bask in the past.
We're not going to bask in the past too much, but it's hard to not recognize the fact that you have a chance to potentially play in now your third Stag Bowl. We saw you in Virginia. We saw you in Houston. You seem like a much nicer guy than the big guy I saw on the field in Houston. You were pretty intense and fired up back then, deservedly so. But what would it mean for your senior class to have a chance to go out with another shot at the Stag Bowl and potentially be the back-to-back Stag Bowl champs, which really hasn't happened in a while?
Yeah, our main goal is just to maximize our time together as a unit, as a team. And we don't really focus on winning the national championship, but we're focused on the current task at hand and pouring everything we got into everything in the now.
I think JB has a photo he had sent me actually earlier today from Houston. We'll try to run that, but alluding to the look of JP Sullivan for a game versus him being the nice guy on the interview type of situation is definitely.
I have a quick question, Frank. Let me just interject here for a second, because speaking of pictures, JP, your freshman photo, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, no hair, and you're about 288, and now you're this chiseled 270, 275. I mean, I imagine that the strength and conditioning, just sort of the prep that you've gotten over the years has gotten you to this point. Tell us a little about your evolution here.
Yeah, coming into freshman year, I was starting out as an offensive lineman, and that only lasted for about a week. And then I got moved to D-line, and it was a complete change for me because I was not used to running after the ball that much. But that transition into a sophomore year, I knew I had to change a lot about myself in order to play football at North Central. And I just made it like my personality and lifestyle.
Well, look, personality, lifestyle, etc. You're also, I believe, according to the roster, at least a criminology major. And so, as you begin to figure out what's going to be next for you, is it going to be law enforcement? Is it going to be, behind the scenes type of stuff? Where are things going for you once this football run is done for you?
As of right now, I got an internship lined up for our spring semester for law enforcement, but I know my dad is a detective in Chicago, so I'm just kind of following in our family's footsteps, and that's the plan for right now.
And he didn't steer you away from it? He told you this is the way to go? Because I know a lot of law enforcement guys that always say to their kids, this is a hell of a thing to go into and everything else, but you're going to follow in his footsteps, it sounds like.
Yep.
Good for you. Very good. JB?
I mean, it's only a couple of days, and then we're recording this now on a Thursday. When you guys are taking a look at film and seeing what John Carroll's bringing to the table, do they remind you of any of teams that you've either played both in either the CCIW or non-conference? Are there some similarities there, or is it just this is a clean slate and we're just building a game plan off of where we're at this point?
Yeah, everything we've seen throughout the season, they do like a lot of what Bethel does, and that's a lot of like motions and like eye candy, so to say. But they do like giving the ball to their best players, and number 4 is just a phenomenal athlete, and I'm excited for the opportunity to go against this team in the semifinal game.
What would it mean for you personally to get back to the Stag Bowl, JP, though? I mean, is this something, we're talking rare air here. Obviously, Mount Union had a run for a period of time. Rowan had a run. Whitewater had a run for a period of time in terms of consecutive nature of things. But for the idea of getting your team back for what would be, 2019, 2021, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so 6 straight that would be. Stag Bowls, regardless of wins and losses in it. I mean, what would it mean for you to be able to, make this happen, a 6 straight number, which is, like I said, rare air for a situation like this?
Yeah, it would definitely be cool, but we're only focused on getting maximum time together, and it's a testament to our alumni, those who dug the hole, and we just got to keep digging for them, and just believing in our culture and our coaching staff and everyone who supports us.
Was there a collective sigh of relief when the forecast showed that it's not going to be like single-digit temperatures? It's going to be a balmy 39 there in Naperville this weekend?
Yeah, everybody was like, finally. So go out to play in super cold games.
It's showing the temperature here as of when we're recording this Thursday, 39, maybe light rain, although we're a little suspect about that light rain. It's not showing on all of our models right now, but either way, 39 degrees compared to, I think it was 9-ish degrees or something like that maybe last weekend, if you're lucky. Is it definitely a change? I'll be enduring the snow in 22 up at River Falls, so, think of me over there. But JP, last question for you. Talk about Coach Spencer, because he's somebody that, I enjoy talking to a lot. He's a guy that we also have learned over time. We can ask him maybe about 3 questions in an interview, because he's a guy that's going to answer a question in a way that is complete in every possible way. But you love listening to the guy. It's just like one of those things where you learn so much from just listening to him along the way. What's your relationship with him like, and what do you think makes him the success that he is ultimately, that lends to you guys becoming the successes on the field?
Yeah, I have a great relationship with Coach Spencer. Over the past year, we gotten closer, and every time we have a meeting with him, there's something new I take away every time, whether that's how to lead, how to go about doing certain things. And it's just very knowledgeable, and it's stuff that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life. And yeah, just playing for him, he keeps everything very tight, and it's just very nice, like how he's able to identify like little weaknesses that we need to focus on, and not worrying about like outside factors, but only worrying about ourselves.
Certainly seems that way, and I'm going to probably date myself with this reference. You can probably go on Wikipedia, JP, and look this up, but your gameplay reminds me of a guy from the Minnesota Vikings named Keith Millard, who was a very athletic defensive tackle. The thing that sort of surprised me about your stat sheet this year, apparently you've defended 7 passes, so they drop you back in coverage. I mean, it looks like you can kind of do it all, or either that or you're just batting stuff down up at the line of scrimmage. And we could talk to you all morning, but we know that you've got important business ahead of you, a national championship to defend and a semifinal game to win. So we'd love to give you the opportunity to give any shout outs to friends, family, maybe that dad of yours who's working in Chicago, teammates, anything. Floor is yours, JP Sullivan.
Yeah, it's a testament to every single one of my teammates and family and friends that have supported us all season long and these last 4 years. And it's just a fear of not letting them down and just playing for something that's bigger than just myself and the whole team.
Well, JP, you're a nice guy on the interview, a monster on the field, and that's a great thing to have, the ability to turn it off and on like that, for sure. But we wish you nothing but the best in the long run, and we wish you guys a great football game on Saturday. John Carroll, no pushover. Obviously, they made some noise with that Mount Union, or win it versus Mount Union, I should say. And so, it's a great game of football for a reason. You never know on any given Saturday what's going to happen out there. But with guys like you, North Central has a lot of success for a reason. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for joining us. And again, best of luck with everything.
Thank you, guys.
JP's just one of those guys, you've alluded to it, the eye black, basically all over the face type of situation. He doesn't need to do it. He's intense as it is. You don't need the eye black to even, further that. But, he dresses and looks the role by all means. And his gameplay speaks, again, for itself out there. How important is their defense? Because we've been looking at the John Carroll defense a lot, but their defense, you talked about Roby picking off quarterbacks, but the lines, the defensive line for North Central against the offensive line for John Carroll is going to be a major, major pinch point here in this game. What are your thoughts here about that?
Well, I think it's the key to the game in many ways, because what we saw last week with Bethel was that while they did have some success in the first half, in the second half, they were pretty much shut out until it was kind of garbage time and it didn't matter. And I think that's what John Carroll is going to have to overcome, is what happens if their drives start to stall and they can't run the ball. And if they become a one-dimensional offense, that could get a little dicey. So, Sullivan is a force to be reckoned with. I remember, seeing him, warming up before the Stag Bowl in Houston back in January. He's a very intimidating physical presence. I mean, he has almost NFL size. I mean, I've been to the Bucs preseason practices and all that kind of thing. He's a big guy, especially for a Division III player. And the combination of strength and speed that he brings, I mean, they'll probably be double teaming him. And so that'll open things up for guys like Janiak, who, had 18 tackles last week. And Carroll might need to bring in some, bigger tight end packages, maybe even use sort of like a fullback type, H-back type of thing to kind of pick up these guys. It's going to be an intense day for them, because this defense is the real deal.
So, having seen these games enough, JB, I think it is time to actually talk about them a little bit more. And we've got our guest analyst here, somebody whose name was thrown around a little bit on the social media sphere this week, as he is going to be the color commentator for the John Carroll North Central game, semifinal number 2 on ESPN+. Ryan Cavanaugh joining us. He'll be with Anthony Lima, I believe it is, Lima or Lima. You're going to tell me which it is, Ryan. But you guys have done a great job for your broadcasts throughout the years. You guys have been there for a little while now doing that. And wanted to bring you on to talk a little bit about your semifinal and how the broadcast is going to go for you guys, what you've been even doing to prep up for it. Because people, I think, often wonder what makes you a professional broadcaster, and you've been deep in this game all week long. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, well, I don't really generally deal with the negativity that sometimes comes out, but I've been doing MAC games all year. I'm very fortunate. I think this is my 4th or 5th year working for ESPN, but I come from Division III roots, and I did play quarterback at John Carroll. That being said, I think the first thing that makes you a professional is that my job means more than the letterman's jacket I may have in a closet at home. I started doing high school football. I enjoy doing the college because a bad pass in college is a bad pass. A bad pass in high school is a great play by the defensive back. So, you have to kind of roll out there and call it how it is. But I'm excited. I love the matchup. I'm excited, especially to get back to my roots of Division III football because it's so unique. Like I said, who better to call a game than somebody who understands the experience of Division III football players? Nobody pays us. They're not paying for our college to be there. The classrooms across the street from the field, they don't care what the score was yesterday. They care that your butt is in that classroom for the class when it starts and you're going to pay attention. So that unique experience coupled with the tremendous amount of talent we're going to see from both teams on the field. I think North Central, frankly, could beat some FCS teams. This is as dynamic of a Division III team. And specifically, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but this offensive line is the best offensive line I've seen ever at the Division III level. And coming from John Carroll, we had this team known as Mount Union, who often got Division I transfers at offensive line, and those guys were a handful. So the good news for Carroll is that all these guys played Mount Union every single year, including this year. A couple of weeks ago, they knocked off Mount Union in what I would call the biggest win in John Carroll football history, double overtime. Usually when you climb that mountain, it's a smooth sailing from there to whatever your next goal is. They didn't know that there was a bigger mountain in the way called the Cardinals from North Central.
Indeed. JB, why don't you run us through? We'll go through with this tail of the tape first here and talk about this game a little bit deeper that way. I know, Ryan, you had looked at this with us yesterday a little bit as we assembled it, but JB will run through the numbers and why this is a bit of a mountainous situation that John Carroll is facing here with North Central. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah, well, I guess starting on the right-hand side, since they're the host team and the defending champs, we'll go with the Cardinals, who clearly have become one of the top programs in the nation. Their playoff record just keeps getting better year after year, and this is their, sixth potential Stag Bowl entrance if they can win on Saturday. So they're the only undefeated team left in D3. And a lot of that has to do with how balanced and good of an offense and defense that they have. You can see in the numbers here, 272 plus yards rushing. They have the most rushing yards of any team left in the tournament. And a big reason they beat Bethel last weekend was they just keep running the ball, churning and burning. Donovan McNeil and this arsenal of running backs. And then on the flip side, and we spoke to him a little earlier today, they have this great rush defense headed up by senior defensive lineman JP, who's one of the biggest, strongest guys that I've ever stood next to at a D3 game. And so that's a big reason why they've been so good. And he talked about, I think, one of the goals, whether he said it explicitly or not, that they're really trying to be one of the best defenses in NCC history. The numbers prove it. I mean, they have given up a few more points in the playoffs than they have during the regular season, but a lot of those have come in garbage time, and they're doing well. Garrett Wilson is their quarterback, a transfer from Oklahoma State, 42 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. They have a plus 14 turnover margin, and they tend to beat teams pretty soundly by 40 plus, averaging 50 points a game and holding teams to less than 10 points. Pretty impressive there. On the flip side, the Blue Streaks, 12-1, but they're not too far off from a offensive perspective to the Cardinals. I mean, 442 versus 488. They are also pretty balanced, but lean a little more towards the pass because of Nick Semptimphelter and that wide receiving core. Defensively, even better rush defense, theoretically, with less than 50 yards allowed per game. That will definitely be tested in this one. That's the biggest gap when you look at the 48.8 versus 272. Something's got to give there. And then Nick has been having a great season, 36 total touchdowns, only 3 interceptions over 13 games is amazing. +9 on the turnover margin. They struggled a little bit last week with Barry on that, but Barry is one of the better defenses out there, so that could explain it. Obviously, Mount Union is tough too. 26 points, 26 point, easy for me to say, point differential here, averaging almost 40, and definitely a strong offense, but they've struggled a little bit of late, Ryan. I mean, have you had a chance to look back on any of the tape of the games leading up to this? Is that part of your research to kind of see how things have progressed?
Yeah. So just to go to that, I know what happened in every one of the games for both these teams coming into this, and I've watched the past 2 game films, and that's important. Like you mentioned, Donovan McNeil last week. Sean Allen, their starting running back, was out last week, so he will be back this week. It just adds, they have 5 running backs that they can roll out there. So, I have watched them on film. I wouldn't say John Carroll has struggled in the last few weeks offensively. I think it's a compliment to the teams they're playing. You mentioned how good Barry is in the pass defense, and Mount Union is who they are. So I also think that the offensive play calling, and this is just my view from watching the tape, sometimes it changes through the playoffs. A 7 or a 10-point lead in the playoffs can change how you call a game, as opposed to a 7 to 10-point lead in the 6th game of the season. So, you may not open it up as much. You might get a little more conservative. You might really want to put the ball in the hands of your defense. And JB, you mentioned the run defense of John Carroll. Last week, their punter had one of the best games. I think he 7 punts inside the 20. Go ahead.
Special teams MVP for week 15. There you go.
Yeah, that's right. So when you know your special teams are going to do that, and you know your defense is going to play complementary football, and they're not going to drive 80 yards on you, it may change the dynamic of the play caller on how aggressive they want to be, because they don't have to be.
And that's a good point, for sure. This is a time of year when you start getting different scenarios coming at you and strong teams constantly coming at you. We're getting flamed, from the same quantities on Twitter for saying that Donovan McNeil is more or less an under-the-radar guy over the last couple weeks. For those that don't realize, in fact, McNeil didn't play in the second round game for North Central. 4 of his 11 touchdowns have come over the last 2 weeks, including 3 in this last game versus Bethel. 495 of his 1,302 yards came in the last 3 games he's played this season. And so, more or less, yes, indeed, if you look at a national perspective of running backs, Donovan McNeil is a little bit of an under-the-radar guy. Region 5 is not as deep, Absolutely. And so he may get accolades that not everybody nationally would be able to associate with right away. And so that's a compliment to the guy, because he's rising to the occasion at the best possible time this season, with 3 touchdowns last week against a team like Bethel, whose defense was just as good as, on paper, North Central's. And so that is a compliment to Donovan McNeil. He's a fast running back. We saw it in the video from last week. And Ryan, talk about a little bit more about that run game to the degree you can, that what you're seeing in that, 5 or so running backs that can go out there when Sean Allen's especially healthy and good to go again probably this week.
Yeah, I think it starts with Sean Allen. He's a very complete back. And then from there, the other guys do something a little different. Like you mentioned, Donovan McNeil, I was incredibly impressed with his burst, his vision, his balance, his ability to cut back, especially in between the tackles. Oftentimes you don't see a running back who can change directions as quickly and as dynamically as McNeil does with linebackers all around you. Another guy, Jordan Williams, I just talked to offensive coordinator Eric Studeman, and I said, he reminds me of Eric Dickerson when he's running. He's got this real high knee drive, long stride, and the combination of being able to run you over because, he's a 210-pound back with also game-breaking speed on the outside. So what I like most about that running back room, and, you've got the two true freshmen, Zeb Rashid, you got Blaze. What I like most about it is the ability to keep all these guys fresh, because when you rotate from one guy to another, there isn't a drop-off. There's very little of a drop-off. And that's just like a great offensive line wears on a defense over 4 quarters. The running backs continue to wear on the defense because there's fresh legs coming at you all the time.
Let's look at semifinal number 1 quickly here. I'll run us through a tail of the tape here. So we talk about this game that I will be attending. Ryan, sorry, I would love to meet you. Maybe I'll see you at the Stag Bowl no matter what happens there. But here's what we got here. Johns Hopkins visiting UW-River Falls. 458.9, 563.2 in terms of yards per game. That's a huge number still for River Falls, down slightly from what we saw last week's number but the fact that they're still in the 500s to that degree is incredible. Defensively, though, slight edge to Johns Hopkins out there, but the rush defense of River Falls at only 79.2 is pretty incredible, to say the least. Caleb Blaha, 46 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Bay Harvey, 43 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But both of these quarterbacks have double-digit rushing touchdowns. And that's something unusual to see at this point in the season. That the rush, touchdown numbers reach that level for a quarterback. River Falls with the plus 14 versus the plus 10 and 5 more points per game. But again, Ryan, eye-popping is that offensive number for River Falls. Have you seen anything quite like that out there?
No. I mean, they're almost putting 600 yards per game, and that's week after week. That's called NASCAR on steroids. They're gonna get out there. They're gonna snap the ball quick. They're gonna throw it around the yard. And they're going to pressure you that way. They don't let defenses substitute. They roll with what they have, and that is very stressful for a defense. And for Johns Hopkins, they need to get them off schedule. They need to figure out how to make them do what they don't want to do, play from the front. And Hopkins has a win over John Carroll this year. So battle tested. And I think really going back to that, both these teams benefited from playing a Final Four team in week 2 of the season. But look at the right there. Look at River Falls numbers. These are video game numbers for how many points they're scoring per game.
Yeah,
absolutely. JB, go ahead.
And Ryan, as a longtime D3 guy, guy who played quarterback and who's seen a lot of games at this level, what's your impression on Blaha? A little later this afternoon, Pat and Greg from D3Football.com are going to be announcing the Glardy finalists. I don't think it's a real stretch to assume that Caleb Blaha will be in that final group. He's had ridiculous numbers this year, both passing and running the ball. I'm pretty sure that it's almost guaranteed that he's going to be in that group today. What is your impression of seeing him on film? Have you ever seen a guy who plays like this, or is this just kind of, we got this special player here that otherwise maybe wouldn't be in a D3 team?
Yeah, that's another long conversation, fellas. We could talk about forever, but just the trickle-down factor of the portal and colleges recruiting less high school kids and taking a 5-star from LSU that went to Coastal, that went to Southern Louisiana, and now he's in D3, whatever. He's like in a MAC school, and that scholarship would have gone to a high school kid, but they're taking kids that may not have worked out for whatever reason at the bigger levels. So what that means is Division II and Division III are getting guys that may have otherwise been a mid-major type scholarship guy in Division I. As for Blaha, I think he's in the perfect offense that complements what he does. I love running quarterback. I would say like Trinidad Chambliss, who was at Ferris State. Now he's at Ole Miss, and he's doing tremendous things. But that ability to throw the ball and run not only on design runs, but also broken plays makes it so difficult, because when you have a +1 in the run game where the quarterback's running the football, you have an extra blocker, and with Blaha, you get that quite often. As you mentioned, 14, 15 rushing touchdowns go along with 30 through the air. It's impressive.
JB, Ryan's going to have to jump off with us, but Ryan, if you want to plug one more time, for folks that are wondering how they're going to be able to watch your game, go right ahead and do so.
Yeah, North Central's hosting John Carroll. It's the D3 semifinal, 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus. Anthony Lima and myself, we're going to bring all the smoke, and we can't wait. It's going to be one of the best games. Obviously, 4 teams left. They deserve to be here, and tune in. And guys, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Ryan, our pleasure. Thanks so much, and best of luck on the call. I'll be watching it for sure after semifinal 1 is complete. So best of luck with everything, and send Anthony our best.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. JB, why don't we continue here, and we got to pick these games still, so let's do so. And again, I do need to declare you officially the champion, apparently, because we are with only 3 games remaining. You may want to duck because our upper bar now is going to cover us. But 5-game lead because we both went 4-0 last week. But JB, it is time to talk about the 2 games and pick them. I will let you go. Well, let me go first here since I'm going to be at this game. Actually, hold on. And there we go. Fix this. There we go. Live to tape, it's just as much fun as live. Trust me, folks. Yeah. So first off, we have number 7 Hopkins at number 6 River Falls, the game I'm attending, as I said. This is interesting. To me, I don't know if Hopkins is going to have the ability to slow this game down. We talked about it earlier in the show. Ryan even alluded to it to a certain degree about that fast cadence offense of River Falls, the Top Gun offense. And so at home, in weather that's going to be a little bit off, but not horrible, I'm going to give River Falls the edge here by a final score 27-25 in River Falls' favor here. Yeah, why not? Yeah, we see strange scores all the time. Yes. Or 2-point conversions going all over the place.
Okay.
Stuff happens throughout games. So 27-25 in favor of River Falls is my score here. Would I be shocked if Hopkins wins this? Absolutely not. But it's going to be a tall order for them in this game. Go ahead.
Yeah. I didn't realize that I had a chance to hit 200 picks right, and so when I did my throwaway last week, and now there's no chance I will hit 200, so I am tempted to just pick the upset because why not? I've already got the money in the bank, the title for the year, so maybe I'll give the Jays a chance. I mean, everything is leaning towards River Falls being the winner of this game. They just have that extra level, both offensive and defensively, and at home. I just don't know if I can pick Hopkins, but it's tempting. I do think it'll be a higher scoring game, kind of like we saw with the Hopkins Mount Union game last year. I don't remember what the score of that game was, but it was 40-37 or something like that. I think it'll be one of those kinds of games. And what I hope I see on Saturday is that Hopkins doesn't get too conservative in the second quarter like they did. That there's sometimes when you're playing at this level against teams like this, if you're in the 40 or that kind of sometimes you just got to go for it and not just punt the ball away. I mean, I know their defensive line is great and can create some issue, but I would try to keep the ball out of Blaha's hands no matter what. So if it's 4th and 4 at the 44, don't punt. That's it.
Okay, in the game we talked with Ryan about more because he'll be covering it. John Carroll at North Central. You start this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to give the defending champs the nod just because they've been there, they've done that. It has been a historic year for John Carroll, and a loss here would not damper that in any way. They'll match their record from their great 2016 season that they had, and so Coach Behrman's just done a fantastic job. We usually do Coach of the Year stuff after the end of the season, but he's kind of right at the top of my list at the moment for that kind of honor given how they performed. But you have the JP Sullivans, you have the Sean Allens, the Garrett Wilsons. I just think, the 35-21 score, similar to that we saw in the Bethel game, is probably what's going to happen. I mean, even JP said that the defense, or the John Carroll offense reminds him of Bethel, and they handled them pretty well. So I think Nick will have some chances to shine, and hopefully his offensive line will give him some time to do that. But it's going to be tough. So yeah, I'll take the Cardinals. Yeah, I guess 35-21.
Yeah, I kind of like that score, to be honest with you, so I'm going to match you on it. 35-21 was where I was going to go with it too, in the same direction. It is the arsenal of running backs, especially Sean Allen's better. It's giving Garrett Wilson that comfort zone to do what he does, to lull him to sleep with a run and then throw the ball 40 yards if need be, and that's his specialty when it comes down to it. The offensive line is going to win here, I think, for North Central. And John Carroll's not going to just go away quietly in this game by any stretch of the imagination. They are ball hawks. Look at the numbers from last week in terms of the 7 turnovers forced versus the 3. But at the same time, JB, I don't see them getting 7 turnovers here on North Central. They'll be lucky to get 2. And if they do get 2, maybe it is still a game changer of sorts. But then how many does North Central get is the question.
I would be surprised if Wilson throws the ball more than 16 to 20 times in this game, honestly.
Fair enough.
Like, why?
Fair enough.
Yeah, why bother? Just keep running at them, wear them down. They North Central has the size advantage. Might as well lean into it.
So 35-21 is where I'm going with it as well. And again, we look at this situation. We're going to populate this one come next week. But there it is. That is awaiting Stag Bowl entrance after Saturday. That will be filled in. Last thoughts about things as we exit stage left on this show.
Well, I hope that we're a little bit wrong, because it would be nice if these games were a little bit closer, maybe a little more exciting. Like last year's Hopkins Mount Union game was fantastic. I mean, you unfortunately were turning into a popsicle on the sideline, frozen solid. But that was a great back and forth affair. Hopefully we get some games like that rather than 14 to 21 point wins. We'll see. These are clearly the best of the best. The home teams seem to be destined to meet in the championship, but you never know. We'll see.
Also, you got one message for a former coach out there, if I remember correctly. You want to wish?
Yes. We're going to send a salute and a shout out. Today, December 18th, is former head coach and Merchant Marine great Mike Toop's birthday. He's probably only 57, I'm guessing. We'll give him that. And I'm sure he's enjoying his retirement in Texas. I know he's keeping an eye on making sure we're not goofing around too much, and that J-Mo isn't, going too crazy up there in Kings Point. I think we actually have a little bonus content for the Mariners coming up next week, in sort of the off week after we get crunch time out, because I know you covered one of their games, but with everything else going on, we didn't have a chance to really put those interviews out. So we'll get those post-game interviews out right before Christmas. And looking forward to seeing some great games this weekend. We'll recap them early next week. And happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody, but we will see you. We've got one more before that's all said and done. So we'll have you back before Christmas time with Crunch Time next week. In the meantime, we'll have coverage at the semifinal number 1. Folks, enjoy the games. We'll see you soon.